Hello, everyone. We're just getting set up now, so hopefully Michelle, are you in the venue? I'm going to share slides in the meantime. Anyway, thank you all very much for joining us. I'm going to share this, and it's going to switch to that view. Amazing! And we almost have the venue set up.
Hello.
Hello, Michelle.
Hello, developer Steve. I'll let you continue. I'll just stand here quietly and patiently. We've got a table gathered in front of us here in Adelaide, but
Amazing.
go ahead.
Hello to the venue. Everyone give us a big shout. I'm going to pretend I heard it, and it was
Sorry,
amazing.
I was on mute. Let's try that again. Everyone, 1, 2, 3.
Yay! Amazing. Thank you all for joining us. Michelle, were you doing the opening to this or nothing like some on the air productioning?
Yeah, I'm opening. Welcome to the Oz IoT
Okay.
meetup. You guys, there's a camera in front of me here. We're speaking obviously to the venue. So
One sec. Oh, sorry.
yeah, if you're on the chat, in the Remo chat, tell us where you're dialing in from today. We are here in Adelaide. We've got 6, 7, 8 of us here in the room at the moment. And how many online? We've got 9 online, so it's a bit equal there. So yeah, we've got someone in Narromine, New South Wales, Queanbeyan. I think that's in, is that in Queensland? No. So this is cool. Welcome to the hybrid event for Oz IoT. Today is going to be a security themed. So we've got some people here from cyber, SecOps, and everything in between. So take notes, everyone, get your papers out. Yeah, we're talking about security. We do Oz IoT every month. Last time was a space theme, and we're looking forward to some other cool themes in the future. We've got 2 speakers in the room today, and 1 will be online, developer Steve. Other than that, Steve, if you jump to the next slide.
Virtual click.
That's beautiful, thank you. There's a few of you guys from all around Australia, and we're here on Ghanaland in Adelaide. So we pay our respects as the Oz IoT group to the Ghanalander meeting on today and to wherever you guys are dialing in from today, and recognise, sorry? And the cyberspace, yeah. And we recognise that sovereignty was never ceded on this land, and we're very grateful to be here. So that's that slide. And what's the next one? And the agenda. So I'll hand over to developer Steve in a second to talk about some IoT related news and events that have come up. Some are pretty exciting. And then we'll have Gail over here from the Australia Cyber Collaboration Centre based in Adelaide, which is awesome. And then we have Ben over here from Auth0. There we go, thanks Ben. Doing a live demo, and you see a preview of the demo behind me here today. And then we'll hand over to finish with developer Steve in his role at Snyk, talking about finding the vulnerabilities before they find you, which will be interesting and exciting. And after that, anyone can take the chance to come up here and grab my microphone or go off mute if you like and share something that you've been working on, if there's a project that you want to get people's input on in the IoT space. And then we can close off with some networking and chat. So if you're here in Adelaide, we can hang around and keep chatting, go to the bar, grab a drink. If you're on the Remo platform, we'll explain Remo in a second, but you can network on your tables there. So that will be pretty cool. And speaking of Remo, I'll hand over to developer Steve, who I think will explain to us how that platform is going to work and get us started with the news and IoT stuff.
Amazing. Thanks, Michelle. You could tell how smooth this whole thing went. No, big thank you to everyone that's helped pull this together. Yeah, it was not last minute at all. No, it wasn't. Most of it wasn't. Anyway, for those in venue today, in the IRL venue, well, I hope you know where the toilets are and all the facilities and drinks and all those fun stuff. For those joining us online, we don't quite have drinks for you this time. Working on it. Stay tuned for that one. But yeah, if you have joined us in the Remo venue, as you'll have already discovered, you basically jump into tables of 6 to 8. So you can put camera and microphone on, you can talk via text chat. There are whiteboards as well, so you can do some really cool prototyping, play tic-tac-toe, just geek out in them, have fun, which is amazing. And then at the moment, we're in presentation mode. As you all can see, if anyone has any questions, on the right-hand side, you'll see a little questions box, so you can put some stuff in there, or we'll also keep an eye on the general chat as well. So if you want to make comments, just geek out, like, please feel free. So, small side note to that, HTML tags do actually work in that chat, which I always find fun, because for those of us that remember the marquee tag, that does work, and you don't have to close them. You can be extra lazy. You only have to do an open tag, so that's great. Sadly, for those of us in the IRL venue, the in real life venue, you can try and do marquee. I don't know if it's going to work, but I mean, you could just, I don't know. Well, maybe you will get it working. Anyway, there's no marquee IRL, but you can try and use it anyway. We do have a code of conduct. You can check it out on that link. There's a QR code there as well. It's basically, well, to quote Bill and Ted, one of my favorite movies is just be excellent to each other. And yeah, I mean, we all know that. We're all contributors to open source. We've been around these communities for a while. We like to create an inclusive, diverse, respectful, and friendly environment. And again, just be excellent to each other. If anyone does have any concerns, please reach out to either me or Michelle, depending which venue you're on. Oh, no, you can reach out to us anyway. And yeah, you can DM us. I'm at Developer Steve everywhere, and Michelle is Michelle Howie on Twitter and all the other places too. So please feel free to reach out. We will help. Big thank you to our sponsors for the meetup today. So Auth0 and Sherlock. Both of our sponsors today are in venue. So if you are in venue, please reach out, say hi. Well, they're in the room with you now. And if you're not in the venue, then please check out their websites, and then also hit them up on Twitter, LinkedIn. Feel free to tag them. The hashtag, actually, I should point that out. The hashtag for our event is OzIoT. So if you did want to do a mention, do a shout out, etc., please just drop the hashtag on there as well. And hosts today.
Can I just jump in with the sponsors for a second? So we do have Sherlock and Auth0 in the room today. And Sherlock is actually a startup as well. So yeah, if we can jump on and see what they're doing in the automated home loan space, that's pretty exciting too. And thanks to our sponsors, we actually have drinks at the bar. So if you guys are sitting here without a drink, go to the bar, and our sponsors have sorted you out there tonight. I just wanted to say that. No, and you'll hear about Auth0 later, so I won't plug them too much.
And just to add to that too, yeah, the home loan space at the moment is an amazingly hot space. I'm actually going to go check that out after this because I might be in the market for one. So, but yeah, please go check them out. And also, I'm going to give them a big round of applause. And I can hear everyone else doing it too online. So amazing, thank you. And everyone in the room, I'm sure, is too as well. And you all know where we're from. So IBM Developer, Telstra Dev, and I'm from Snyk. Which we'll go into a bit later because I'm going to break some code. That's amazing. Anyway, quick recap of some news. And this is just stuff we've seen floating around the last few weeks on the interwebs. And like, I love IoT. That's why I'm here. That's why you're all here. So here's some really cool stuff we found floating around. Now, Arduino, interestingly, is getting into edge control now, which is pretty cool because edge is edgy. Anyway, moving on. I can feel the face palms now. Ben, I can see that face palm. Yeah, Arduino does have a new range of edge control units coming out, or edge control boards. So these are retailing for about $200 American. I think that's going to be like, I'm going to say close to $300 Australian. It's probably a little bit more. I don't know what that is in Doge, but it keeps going up. Anyway, what's interesting about these is, and this is a really smart play, for anyone that knows the MKR series boards, so that little Arduino that Telstra Dev have available, there's a whole range of those, but this is compatible with those. So that makes this board instantly compatible, and it just plugs into the actual, that board you can see on the screen. But that makes it this board instantly compatible with Cat-M1, with the GSM networks, with LoRaWAN, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. Any of those MKR boards are compatible, which I thought was pretty damn smart. That's a pretty cool idea. Not only that, but it's this main edge control board itself is a 12-volt battery supply, which you can do just through pretty much most batteries, or most 12-volt batteries, but also solar power as well. Again, smart play. I won't go through the full specs. There's a lot of numbers and different things that it has, like 64 megahertz ARM Cortex, 420 milliamp inputs. It's got analog inputs. It's got hydrostatic watermark sensor inputs. You might think I'm reading that from this slide, and you would be correct. Anyway, it's worth checking out. The link's on here, and we'll put that up after as well, because I think this is a really smart play from Arduino, particularly as it looks like they're starting to move into that commercial space. Like just makes sense. For those that don't know what Edge is, this is the type of thing that you have all your sensors literally in a field connect into this one board, and then this one board talks out to the internet, be it via LoRaWAN, via Cat-M1. I like Cat-M1. Anyway, totally worth checking out. I actually haven't looked into this one yet because, well, I haven't had time, but ESP32's never, or any of the expressive stuff, never ceases to amaze me. And like now they do video, which is pretty damn amazing when you consider like where these things first started with the ESP8266s. But there's a really cool tutorial that I like flick through, but it just always like makes my mind boggle to think that something so tiny, so cheap is now able to power little video displays, which I mean, you can do pretty much anything with them. And if you haven't seen it yet, these also have a little AI. I'm going to say it's Edge because it's basically doing it on board. A little AI edge detection thing that'll do face tracking and image recognition on some basic pieces of fruit or some basic objects. But again, like these things just never fail to surprise me. So totally worth checking out. And the last one is I'm going to mention is, well, I'm going to say that this is IoT because, well, Star Wars and like Star Wars is cool. Also, we had May the 4th last week. And stay tuned for my talk. I have some stickers for you. Anyway, we'll get into that. So it turns out Disney last week on May the 4th came out with this news article, which I was like, take my money. They've actually made a real lightsaber for some of the new TV series that they're now putting out, some of the live action stuff, which, yeah, is pretty cool that they need to take my money because this thing looks pretty damn good. Supposedly, there's not much out on this stuff, but again, I'm totally counting this as IoT because lightsaber. It's two widened strips of plastic that function like a tape measure, and that like we've seen something similar to this with some of the toys that have come out where you sort of flick it out and an extended tube would come out. So basically, it's two widened strips that flick out, but except these ones are extended by a motor, so hence why the nice smooth action. And then extended by a motor and wrap around each other to create a cylinder with a strip of LEDs running down the middle to create the glow. I'm going to say, like, looking at that there, that is not special effects. Well, the shimmery part maybe, but the actual extension of the lightsaber, that is what it looks like. And I'm going to say that looks pretty cool, and they will take my money. Anyway, that's all I had for the news that we'd spotted around. If you have something you've seen that's pretty cool, please drop it in the chat. I can't see the chat right now, but if you want to drop something in, or in venue you don't have chat or marquee, so maybe just use it for when you're doing your networking. Just going to do a quick upcoming event. Call for Code 2021 is back. I got to help make one of the sample code kits for this year's challenges, so please check that out if you're interested in getting involved. This is a great initiative. As a dev, one of the things I love the most is being able to build stuff that helps people in time, well, particularly in times of need, but just helps people. And that's what this initiative does. It's now in its 4th year, aligned with the United Nations. A lot of great projects come out of it. The winning projects out of this get, there's full details on the site, but the winning projects out of it, IBM works pretty closely with to build out and take these solutions to market. Some of the previous year winners, we've seen some fantastic IoT devices go to market, and also get open sourced underneath the Linux Foundation. So totally worth getting involved in. Have a look at developer.ibm.com/corporate-code. That's all for me now. So I'm going to throw back to Michelle because now we're going to get into the talks.
First person, if you go to the next slide, we've got up today is Gail from the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre. There we go. Yeah, cool. Come on up, Gail, and you can grab my microphone. So if you haven't heard of the A3C before, you should look it up, but Gail's going to tell you a bit more about it now. And there are a few different ways where you can get involved and learn more. And I might just hand it over there to Gail. I think if the information, then she's going to give you more. So without further ado.
Woo.
Hey everybody, and welcome. Cool. Well, the Cyber Collaboration Centre was launched the 1st of July last year, 2020, in COVID. And we're a not-for-profit independent organisation, so we can't be swayed by government, which is good. Based. So we have a number of members that some are suppliers, as in vendors, have products. But we've also got members in the education space. So the vocational education, higher education. Projects. So key in our name is collaboration. And we definitely, that's what we want to do. So we were launched with some funding because it costs a lot of money to set up things like cyber ranges, and Michelle's been into the cyber range, and it's a really fantastic space. So working with the Commonwealth Government, looking at protecting Australia's cyber capability and safety. Our key aims is to build that cyber awareness, that cyber resilience, and for everyone to collaborate to be cyber safe. And so that means we're working with schools and universities, not just in the, people doing Master of Cybersecurity and things like that. We're working with schools like the Vet for Schools program to ensure that the next wave of leaders come through and that everybody is thinking cyber safe. Because with COVID, there was at least a 300% increase in attacks, in cyber attacks. But one of the big problems is also insider threat. So we're actually working on a huge collaborative project, working with a number of our members, Academy IT. So we've actually developed a new skill set for insider threat. At this point in time, there is no training in that area, and it's been signed off by the Federal Minister. And one of our aims is to build that capability in that space in organisations, existing employees, people in training. You don't have to have IT training to do it, but also an employment pathway for defence veterans and to increase women in cyber. At this point in time in Australia, there's only 8% of cyber professionals are women. So we need to do something about that. So obviously working with schools and trying to get girls to choose those. So with the coding that was mentioned before, there's things like Code Like a Girl and all that. So we're supporting, STEM Sister and all those programs that try to get girls to select STEM pathways. We also have a project with NATO War Games. So I'm not sure if everybody's aware, Estonia as a country were completely shut down due to Russia doing a cyber attack on every system. Because they moved a statue. So Estonia has become one of the world experts in cybersecurity. So we're actually have a really cool project where we're working, and we will have somebody arriving here soon who's going to be here 2 years to help us build our cyber capability here in Australia. And A3C, we're one of the project leads. So it's a cool space to be in A3C. This week I have, we've just started our first training, and it's a 5-day training. So if any organisation wants to work for government, their information security needs to be checked. And so this is the Information Security Manual, and IRAP it's called. And so we have people actually learning what are all the systems, what needs to be checked, what documentation, what systems, all that stuff. And so they'll go out and they'll be IRAP assessors once they get through this week, pass their exam, and go through a whole bunch of security checks. And in addition, they need to do a whole bunch of other security training to then go and check. And as in South Australia, we are called the Defence State, and we're building the submarines and many ships and planes and vehicles. And so they all have systems which could be penetrated and attacked. And so, it's making sure that any organisation, and we have in South Australia, 95% of our organisations are small to medium SMEs. We're very much a startup state as well. Who's the person who's got the startup here? Yes, so, and that's something that our Premier really encourages, to be entrepreneurial, innovative, and we're certainly part of that. So, so as you know, as a startup, you don't have an IT department and HR department and whatever, checking that the people that you're working with are not insider threats and all that. So this is where we A3C can help you with that. So key is think about, in every organisation you should be thinking workplace health and safety, and Michelle would have learned all that when she's at UniSA and some of my programs. It is everybody's responsibility, but so is cyber safety. And so we're developing programs like Cyber Warden. So you would have your Fire Warden, well, the equivalent, so people understand that terminology. Cyber first responders, so like your ambulance, you know, when you have been attacked. So in our cyber range, if an organisation has had a malware attack, or with their backups, which hopefully they don't keep on site, they can bring them in, check that they are safe to reinstall and not hopefully pay that ransom, and keep operating. Because there's, for instance, in the US, the SolarWinds attack has, in the first 3 months of 2021, has cost that organisation $23.5 million so far. Because when you have an attack, it's then all the reporting and the repair and all the recovery that also costs a lot of money. So it's really important that everybody takes cyber safety seriously. So CSS. And yeah, let me think what else. I wrote myself some little notes of things I didn't want to forget.
Gail,
Yeah.
question.
Yes.
Whereabouts in Adelaide are you based?
So we're at Lot 14, which was where a hospital used to be and moved down the road. So this is the state government is putting a lot of funds into making that a very tech, innovative, entrepreneurial space. So we have the, you know, the space, Australian Space Centre there, the Startup Hub, the machine learning, there's Defence Teaming Centre, there's us. So it's a really cool place to work. Caught out with Michelle for lunch just recently in the Community Cafe. So if you're ever in Adelaide, definitely go to the Community Cafe, can recommend. Good food. It's a really cool space to work. And so we have, our members are really keen as well to give a lot, not just, it's not all about what you can charge, it's also they care about this cyber safety of Australia. Because one thing a lot of people might not be aware, that under the Privacy Act, if you have a data breach, you must now report that. And in 2020, 38% of data breaches were human error. So a big part of what we're doing is education. So one of the facts is, you know, when you get that email, you know, everybody here is pretty cluey, but it could be somebody working for you, and you look at it and you go, oh, that looks suspicious, but 3 in 10 people will still open it. And 1 in 10 people will actually click the link or open the attachment, which then means you get attacked. So education is key. And just a quick fact, nothing to do with Internet of Things, but 21% of people have the same password they've had for 10 years, and it's a weak password, and they use it for multiple things. So when they get in, they get into many things. So yeah, there's some, I could give you lots of horrific stories, but I won't do that tonight. But just, yeah, we have organisations like Retrospect Labs. They have a project called Gauntlet. And so it's something that can be used if there's been a breach, and people come into the range and simulated, and they get to experience, you know, if something like this happens, what do we do? How do we fix this? We have the blue team, the red team, so we have the attackers, the defenders, and we split the room, and you know, then they're attacking, and so people can hone their skills. We're working on where people with cyber skills can come in and have those skills checked, and then they can get certified, as in they're at certain levels. So when people are recruiting, they've got that endorsement, that tick of approval. So we work with the Australian Signal Directorate and the Australian Cyber Security Centre, their Commonwealth Government branches, and the Joint Cyber Collaboration Centres, the JCSCs. So there's lots of acronyms. But yeah, it's a good fun place. We're a small team, but we're an energetic team, collaborative team, and we've got this huge membership base, and you know, working with the universities, and also work with RSL veterans and Soldier On as well. So a lot of people are coming out of the military, and they've got some fantastic skills and obviously understand defence space. And so working on to see that people who've served this country have employment pathways. So it's a cool place to work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gail. And as Gail mentioned, we met when she used to work at UniSA, where I did my electronics engineering degree a few years ago. We had a couple of questions in the chat that I think were answered, but if you do have any more questions for Gail, you can put them in the chat and we can answer them at the end, or you can let me know and we'll follow up after. If you're watching this on the replay on YouTube, you can comment on YouTube. Okay, Developer Steve, if you could go to the next slide for me, please, because we've got our next guest in the room. Yes. We've got Ben from Auth0, and we're going to have a fun live demo today using JSON webhooks. Is that right? No. Yes, to open doors. Web tokens to open doors. Those of you online, you can see on the screen there. But here we go. I can't really read it. Actually, you know what? Ben's going to introduce himself. I'm going to give him the microphone. That's great. This is easy.
Michelle, just
go ahead, Developer Steve.
Can you click? Okay, never mind. It switched views. And I'm just going to say real quick, and this is my favorite pun to do with this talk that Ben does. If this door works, it's adorable. And on that note, I'm going to disappear.
Is my microphone on? Can you hear me? We're doing a mic switch. Is it working? Testing, testing. I shouldn't shout too loud, otherwise the wrong microphone might pick me up.
Yes, I can hear it.
I can't see Steve anymore, and I don't know whether they can hear us. There is a thumbs up?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm also going to move the camera slightly so that those at home, or wherever in the world you are, can see the door a little bit more easily. But when we get to the door part, I also have a bit of magic.
You want to share that screen? Yeah.
Ah, yes. Am I not sharing the screen anymore, Steve, or can you switch to my presentation?
You have to go share again.
I'm not sharing anymore? I haven't stopped sharing.
There we go. Use Ali, can you do the presentation, please?
I've been invited to join the stage as a speaker. You can join later.
Yes.
There we go.
Camera.
But I don't want to join with a camera.
Yeah,
and I need to turn the camera off. Turn the microphone off. It's fine, folks. We know exactly what we're doing here.
Total professionals.
My entire screen. Good. Background view. And then switch to the talk. And I think we're good.
It's just
and
loading.
Also,
there we go. All right,
hooray.
I'll take my screen share off and disappear to the ether.
The fun thing about this is my primary screen I'm sharing. So if you see notifications from my Slack, any kind of passwords coming through, please ignore them. Are we recording this for posterity? You don't have to answer that because it requires you to unmute yourself. I'm going to hope not. You know, what's the worst that can happen? Hello, my name is Ben. My name's Ben. I'm tired. I'm like half an hour ahead already. I came in from Melbourne this morning, but I'm really excited to be here. Actually, I was talking to Michelle before. I think it's the first time in 8 years since I've been in Adelaide. I'm also really excited. I'm going to try and remember to look at everybody at home. Because for the last year, we've all been looking down cameras, and I'm really overjoyed to see actual faces in front of me. It's so much fun. But I will bear in mind that more than half of us are joining us remotely. As I mentioned, like you can see the door a bit better. There's going to be some demo stuff going on. I feel like it's been not necessarily overhauled, but we're going to make it fun, apparently, according to Steve. So no pressure, Ben. It's going to be great. But I do have a way to make that easier for you to see, both on the screen up here, which I'll probably just make bigger so that everybody here can see it. Is that one there? Yep. There we go. And everybody at home can see what's going on as well. But before we do the demo stuff, let's do the boring part, which is the slideshow, which may or may not actually be boring. So without questioning me about what's going to happen, I want you to send a text to this number. It is a US number, so be aware that depending on your plan, it might cost you. And I want you to send your first name. Now, those of you who have done that already, you failed the test. What am I doing with your number? You need to ask me what I'm doing with the number before you say, oh yeah, I'm just going to text my number to this random screen. This dude that I've never met has put on screen. So what's going to happen behind the scenes when you send this? This is a Twilio endpoint, and it's going to take your name and your phone number, and it's going to store it in a JSON blob in jsonbin.io, I think. It's a private bin, so nobody can get to it without my API key. And at the end of this talk, I'm going to wipe it so that nobody else can get it. Also, every time somebody submits their name and number, it replaces the old one. So I'm only ever remembering one. Now, you might want to say this number and do it in a bit, because basically this is a little bit of audience interaction thing. All right, it's fun to interact with the audience. The last person to text will get a text from me during the demo. to take part. So you need to work out whether or not you just want to waste some time and send a text now, or wait until a little bit later and then actually be the person who helps me unlock a door. Timing is key. And you won't know when that SMS comes out. Well, you might get a bit of advance warning. Anyway, so first name to this number. And also, it's going to stay in the top right-hand corner of the screen there throughout the presentation. So don't worry about that. But if you did want the QR code, there it is for another 5 seconds. All righty. So the other downside to only having the one screen is here is I don't have my presenter notes, but we're going to be fine. It's going to be fun. When I mess up, and invariably I will, we'll just ignore it and we'll pretend that I'm doing great. So my name's Ben. My first computer was a Texas Instruments TI-99/4A. Does anybody remember this? Come on, somebody just pretend. Don't make me feel old. This is the first computer I had. I think I was like 5. I didn't really do much programming on it. I got an Amstrad CPC 6128 later, and I did some basic programming in that. That was fun. I've been a web developer now for about 22 years. I started out in PHP. I still love PHP. I don't do it as much as I used to. I'm more of a front-end developer now. I'm also a developer advocate for Auth0 because my passion in security and privacy and my love of engaging with communities and going and speaking at conferences. I basically met somebody who worked for them and said, you should apply. And he kept nagging me until I went for the job interview. And then they said, here's an offer. And I couldn't say no. So that's one of the reasons I'm here today, notwithstanding that I probably would be here anyway, even if I wasn't working for them. And yeah, I've mentioned my passions of security and privacy, also civil liberties. Whenever you see anything going on in the news about the census or Medi, whatever it's called, I've like blown that out of my mind already. You'll usually see me tweeting about how disappointed I am in the government and not being able to do the right thing when it comes to IT. Enough of the politics. I'm going to move on now. If you need to contact me, my Twitter DMs are open. I'm also on most of the mainstream social medias. I'm not on Facebook for various reasons that you can probably guess, but I'm Ben Deckright on Twitter and LinkedIn and that kind of thing. And you can also email me. All right. So who remembers this story back from 2017? It was a device that you could put on your door to allow Amazon to deliver inside your house. It was predominantly solving a really bad problem in the US in that Amazon would deliver a box and they would place it on your doorstep and they would drive away and then somebody would drive past, pick up your box, take it home, and they'd have whatever you just bought. So they thought, well, how can we make this more secure? You can deliver to a PO box or a drop box, but that's harder for the consumer. Some people started playing around with these lockable external boxes. I think Amazon might even have gotten involved in that a little bit. But ultimately, they said, hey, install this IoT door lock that allows our delivery people to drop it off and actually put it on the other side of your door so nobody can steal it. It's a great idea, in theory. It works. You have a door, and you have a delivery truck. Delivery truck comes along, and somebody gets out, and they say, oh, I've got a parcel for this person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out my little IoT-ish type device. It's a tablet of some sort, and I'm going to try and unlock this door. So I'm going to make a request to the, and I'm picking on Amazon here a little bit. I mean, Amazon are the only organization really on a large scale that have had this problem because they're the only organization on a large scale that has dealt with this problem. I'm not saying that they're bad at this. I'm just saying this is the story. So you use your device, you go off to the Amazon Cloud thing and say, I want to unlock 123 High Street. And they say, well, we know you're delivering something. They probably do some kind of behind-the-scenes checks, and they will send back a code, which the device will then send via Bluetooth to the door lock. The door lock will then make a request back to the server saying, hey, I've got this authorization code. Am I allowed to unlock? And it'll say, yes, that's fine. And if you also had the camera, which was the secondary kind of extra protection they put in, which would be behind the door, not outside the door. If you had a camera, then you'd also be able to see if you were not at home. If you weren't at home, then presumably, if you were at home, presumably you would have answered the door yourself. But you'd be able to see what was going on, and you'd be able to replay it afterwards as well, which is an extra bit of protection in case somebody came along and stole your cat. Or anything else, probably. But I think cats were a big concern. So you can get a photo of the person delivering to your house, and everything's happy. But there was a bit of a bug. You could actually knock the camera offline. Because the camera was Wi-Fi. How do you knock a Wi-Fi camera offline? You could cut the power. That's a bit severe. You could turn off the Wi-Fi, but you don't have access to the house. What you can do is you can blast Wi-Fi signal to do a denial of service attack on the 2.4 gigahertz frequency, and then the camera drops off. If you were a software developer, and some of you probably are, if you had a camera that every now and then was sending a photo. This wasn't a live feed. It was a photo every 10 seconds or so. And you're sending this off to an FTP server. And the camera feed got cut. What would you do? What would you display to the person who had the device in their hand looking at who was in their house at that point? Would you show them the most recent photo? Error. That would be nice, wouldn't it? But no, they showed the most recent photo. So you see, so basically the attack was that the delivery driver would come up, they would unlock your door, they would open the door, they'd place your package there, they would close the door, they would do the Wi-Fi attack, they would open your door again. Meanwhile, all you can see is a closed door. They would go inside, they would steal your cat. And then, just checking the battery's okay. And then they would close the door and actually lock it again, if they wanted to, you know. And off they go. And you wouldn't have any video footage of your cat being stolen. They might also steal your package, but I think the cat's probably more valuable. So it's not a year and a half later, the second attack came out. They solved that problem, by the way, by basically deleting the image after a certain amount of time. So you would just get nothing on your screen, which I don't think it showed an error as such. You just get a blank screen, which is probably not much better either. Like, is my internet broken, or is somebody breaking into my house? Where's my cat? Who knows? 6 months later, a second attack came out. And I don't know whether these have been done in real life. Like the first attack, you would have to be an Amazon delivery employee or contractor to be able to execute that attack. Therefore, it's probably going to be a career-limiting move for you to do that. But if it's a really valuable cat, you're going to do that, and then you're going to run away and you'll quit. The second attack was slightly different. So here's how this one works. You have a door. You have somebody like me, a very nefarious, dodgy-looking person, comes along, and they want to steal something from your house. So what they do is they leave a package somewhere, they hide it. It doesn't necessarily need to be proportionally this large. It could be a tiny device that you hide in a plant pot or in the light just outside or somewhere nearby. And then you go away. Nobody knows any better. Delivery person comes along and says, hey, Amazon Cloud, give me this code. I'm going to then send it to the door via Bluetooth. And as soon as you send the key to the door to unlock, the Bluetooth device in this little package that I've hidden detects that Bluetooth, and it jams Bluetooth. Bluetooth can't be intercepted. I'm not going to say it can't be. 99.99999% chance of breaking Bluetooth security, you're probably not going to be able to do it. But what you can do with the Wi-Fi, the same as the Wi-Fi attack, you can do a Bluetooth attack and just blast the Bluetooth frequency spectrum, and then that way, when the delivery driver presses the lock button on his device, it's going to send a message to the door to lock. If you're a software developer and your device made a connection to a door and then didn't get a positive response back about the locking request, what would you do?
400 error.
An error would be nice. No, it just timed out and said, yep, door locked. So then you can come along later, you can steal the cat, you take your little device with you as well because you don't want that evidence to be there and nobody knows any better because the door has not been able to be locked, but the device shows that the door was actually locked. So the solution to this was, when the delivery driver locks the door, they test that the door is locked. Still, not ideal. There are ways that IoT can go wrong. We all know this. So there's got to be a better way. I thought to myself, what kind of ways are there? And I came up with two. We'll have a look at how those two work. The first one is the idea that the authorization is isolated to the door. We don't want a third party involved. The door has to be the sole decider in whether or not you get access. So how about we disconnect the door from the internet altogether, and we use JSON Web Tokens. So if you're not familiar with what a JSON Web Token is, it looks like this. Any questions? No? Good. The first part, the red, is the header. The yellow part is the payload. The header tells you about the JSON Web Token. The payload is the data that you want to transmit in some way, and is basically JSON, which means that anybody can read it. It's base64 URL encoded in this view here. And when you if you can do this in your head, base64 URL decode the red part, and you will get this. I'm sure a couple of you will agree. Good. And this is the kind of payload you get for an access token. You have an audience in there, a UD subject, which is the person who's logged in. So basically, a JSON Web Token is a way of wrapping up a whole lot of data in a way that can be verified as valid, because the third part there, the blue part, is a signature. So that signature is based on either a public or a private key, not public or private, it's a public-private key pair or a pre-shared key mechanism, depending on which algorithm you're using. I won't go into the technical details of that. Talk to me afterwards if you want to know more about how JWTs work. But I wanted to use JWTs as the key, which can be verified by the door without having to go back to the internet and kind of close the loop so everything is decided less easily hackable. So you come along with your device and you make a request to to log in. And this time what you do is you go off to some kind of authorization server, identity provider. It doesn't need to be Auth0. Anything that does OpenID Connect, OAuth 2.0 compliant authentication will be able to do this. That will then generate a token, the access token that we saw, and send that back to the device. And the device can then send that access token in some kind of secure way to the door. And I thought, what's a slightly better way to do it than Bluetooth? Because Bluetooth has got a fair amount of distance. I want to make sure they've got to get really close, and that any kind of attack vector, any kind of system that was trying to blat the frequency would have to be really close as well. So I thought, let's use NFC instead. Hence the NFC reader right there. So the token gets transmitted to the door via NFC, and the door can then verify that the token is valid without having to go off to the internet. So how does the auth code flow work? Let's quickly dive into this. So you've got a concept of what's going on when we get to the demo. You have your device on the left-hand side here. This is like a native application, and we have a demo. I should make sure that this doesn't run out of juice. We're good. We're doing fine. So this is like a native application that will do all the connection and stuff to the cloud. It goes off the way that so PKCE or PKCE is a proof key for certificate exchange. I don't think it is certificate. I always forget what the C is. Proof key for some kind of exchange. Essentially what we're doing is we're creating a mechanism to ensure that the code that comes back to the device is not intercepted in between. And we'll see how that works, and then it doesn't matter what the C is, because you'll understand the theory. So the proof key is hashed in some way with some pre-shared key that both the device and the identity provider know. And that hash is sent with a request. And when you have any kind of mobile native app, when you make a request for any kind of authorization, OpenID Connect, OAuth 2.0 authorization, it actually uses the essentially like a sandboxed browser inside the application. The application doesn't have browsing capabilities built in. It uses, in the case of iOS, it'll use Safari as a sandboxed browser within your native application. So it sends a request to Safari to make a request to Auth0 or whichever identity provider to log in, and it'll send along with that the hashed challenge. Auth0 will then do it a little bit, get you logged in, send you back to a login page. Then you, again, within this Safari part here, you provide your credentials, and then Auth0 will return the auth code. And the auth code is what's then required. You exchange that for your keys, for your token. That auth code gets sent back to Safari, or whatever it is in Android, and then gets sent back to the mobile device, the actual native application that you've written. At this point now, this auth code is sent back from using a standard HTTP request. There's no browser involved. It's just like a XML, HTTP, whatever library you want to use within your application. It sends those back to Auth0 and says, hey, I just received this authorization code. Here's the original challenge that I sent previously well hashed. Auth0 can then verify that the original challenge, when hashed, matches the first challenge you received, which means that this device on the left here is definitely the one that made the request to log in, and it was also the correct device that is now allowed to exchange that auth code for tokens. Does that make sense? I can't see any questions up here, Steve, so if anything comes through, I'm happy to be interrupted. So with that now, we can generate some tokens and send them back to the device. So generally, you'll get an ID token and an access token. ID tells you about the person, access tells you about what that person can do, or rather, what the device can now do on that person's behalf. It's like a permission slip. You're allowed to go from your classroom to the nurse because you hurt yourself. Not sure how well that analogy works, but we'll stick with it. We don't need the ID token at this point. We're just going to take the access token and send that via NFC to the door. The door can then verify that access token because it understands the signing algorithm that was used, and it doesn't need to talk to the identity provider. Clear as mud? So hopefully that's given you, I don't need you to understand all of this. I'm happy to go through this more slowly in the session afterwards, if you want to have a chat with me. I know if you're not used to authorization flows, there's a lot of information here. But just so you've got at least a little bit of an idea of what's going on, so you can kind of imagine what's going on behind the scenes when we finally get to the demo, which is now. So first demo is the NFC one. So let me just switch over to here, and hopefully this is big enough. So what I'm doing here is I have a Python app that's running let me also switch over to, not that one. Let me just try and quickly hide all of my private messages. Good. I want this view, and I want this view. Here we go. All right, folks, we'll get there. Hopefully this all works. Like my boots? There we go. All right, so we have over here, let's start at the bottom. We've got a Raspberry Pi 3. So this here, the first version of this had lots of jumper cables. You can imagine how fragile it was. I'm very impressed, and I hope you are as well, with my ribbon cable manufacturer here. So we've got our Raspberry Pi 3, and all that this is doing is basically monitoring via this cable here what's going on this NFC card reader. And also, you'll notice that there's actually a fatter cable and a thinner one that comes up here. And we've got a third part up here, which looks very official and high-tech. Basically, that comes in there. And this basically allows me to control that servo motor with a 9-volt battery from a Raspberry Pi 3. If you want to know more about exactly how all this is working, I'm more than happy to go through this afterwards. Come up and have a look and play with it. Theoretically, when the Raspberry Pi, which is currently running this program with the funny goggly eyes going, when this gets an NFC token, it's going to unlock this door, in theory. Now, if I also switch over to here, this is a very official application I wrote. You can tell it's official from the quality of the logo. All right, so I'm going to click on the login button. This is going to send me off to, it's actually logged me in automatically. You can see down at the bottom there, it says token copied clipboard and ready to create door pass. I was hoping to show you the login prompt, but I tested it before, so now I'm logged in automatically. But essentially, it's just going to be, if you've seen any kind of standard login from an identity provider, it's those kind of things where you've got username, password, or do you want to log in with Google or Twitter or whatever, those kind of things. So I've got a JSON Web Token that's just been sent to me. And when the JSON Web Token was generated, it was given an expiry. If I hold this up now, I felt a little vibration, so the phone's just detected that the NFC card is there, and I'll click on Create Door Pass. It'll now say, Door Pass created successfully. And if I talk long enough, which I'm doing, because I'm very good at waffling, I don't know whether you've noticed this, and I switch back over to this view here, so that everybody at home can see what's going on. Come on. Play nice. All right, let's close that, open the camera again. Hey, you like my cabling? It's very pretty. So now, theoretically, when I hold this card up, we should be able to see what's going on in the black screen, in the command prompt there, of what's going on. And I've definitely spoken for more than a minute now, which is the point. So I'm going to hold this up, and we'll now see that it says access denied, because the token expired 17 seconds ago. It's funny, I didn't think I was talking for only 1:17. Time doesn't fly sometimes. I almost gave you a spoiler by talking too soon. So you can see there is counting as well. So basically, this poll is polling the NFC card reader every second and reading the token off it. And if we just make this a little wider so that box is a bit prettier, easier to read, it's disappearing. I'm looking at the wrong screen because that one's slightly delayed. There we go. That's easier. Let's do that just for a second so we can see what's going on. So this is what comes through in the access token. This is the complete access token from Auth0. So you can see up there the subject. That Auth0 pipe blah, that's my user ID. So that's the unique ID associated with my account. Every time I log in to this Auth0 tenant, I'm going to get the same ID out. So if you're using something like Auth0 for authenticating your applications, and it doesn't need to be this complicated, you can secure a single-page application or a Python app or whatever you want really easily. And that would be your unique identifier for the user who's just logged in. We've got the issued at and the expiry timestamps. We've got the audience. You can see there are two audiences. One is the user info, and that's basically the identity provider that tells you more about who I am. And also open sesame :/door1, because I have grand plans to create door 2, obviously. We've got the issuer and the AZP, I can never remember, authorizing party, I think, which is basically the client ID of the system that I used for this app, and the scope. So we don't need to go too much into that. But no, OK, so let's actually do something slightly more exciting and get it to work. So I'm going to click login again, which is going to generate a new token. I'm going to click on door pass again, which is now going to pass it onto the token. And it says door pass created successfully. I'm now going to push the door ever so slightly so it doesn't break, because as you can tell, it's a high quality door. It'll stop anybody trying to attack the system. And door just about opens. OK, I'm going to close that again. Now, if I waited for another 37 seconds, it would close automatically, because as soon as that's missing, or the JSON Web Token that's not there anymore is gone, it's obviously going to lock. So if I waffle a little bit more, actually, Steve, you were talking before, talking about waffling, that we can't do marquee from here. I beg to differ. Is that 20 seconds yet? Almost. But that's almost. Hey, 11 seconds, 10 seconds. I'll get you all to do a countdown, but oh, you will.
4, 3.
So theoretically now the token should expire and we're locked out again. Yes. All right, cool. So NFC-based authentication works, and you can see how close I got to that. I think if I hold it roughly there, bring it in a bit closer. Yeah, I'm like 3 centimeters away before it stops working. So it has to be really close. Now, you could argue that in order to block that, you just need a really big NFC frequency generator, and sure, you could do that. But the closer you need to get things, the higher security there's going to be. We're not going to get this 100% secure. All right, this is the fun part. Has anybody texted that number yet? If not, well, you have. Some have. OK, cool. So let's have a look at demo number 2. Let me just, I want to see whether or not I keep doing this. Wrong slide. Another day, can we do remote approval? So what we're going to do is we're going to use device flow instead. And device flow is basically one of those authentication flows like the auth code and Pixie flow, but it separates the device you're trying to log into from the device you're logging in with. And this is really useful for things like doors because they don't come with keyboards or monitors for you to be able to see the username and password you're typing in. So imagine if you want to be able to log in to your door in order to unlock it, and we can use device flow. And the way this works is that the door is going to make a request to Auth0 to unlock. It's going to say, hey, can I unlock? And Auth0 is going to say, you can unlock. Auth0 has no concept of locking. It's going to say, you can have an access token as soon as somebody logs in, based on some information I'm going to give you. So Auth0 is going to send back this little bit of code, which looks something like that. It's a device code. It's code for the door. The user code is the code that the user has to provide from another device to log in. Verification UI and verification URI complete. It's basically where they have to go to log in. The complete one includes the user code. It's a convenience thing. How long they've got to log in, and how often the door should poll to check for a token. So now what's going to happen is the door is going to start polling every 5 seconds and say, hey, do you have a token? Hey, do you have a token? Hey, do you have a token? And Auth0 is going to say, slow down already. Nobody's even tried to log in. Actually, it'll just say no. But if it had opinions, it would think very poorly of the door for asking so quickly. Meanwhile, via Twilio or some kind of other messaging mechanism, we're going to send a URL to the person, not the person who's trying to get in the door, but the person who owns the door. So that person's going to get this thing, and basically in there it says, hey, the sender is your door, and here's a link for you to click on. We need you to click on this and authorize the door to be unlocked. They do that by logging in directly to Auth0 and confirming that user code, at which point the next time the poll request comes along, Auth0 is going to return saying, yes, here's an access token. And the door can say, hey, I've got an access token. I can verify that it's valid, and I'm going to unlock now. So that's demo 2. I want you to remember owner@example.com. This goes for you at home as well if you sent a text message to that number, owner@example.com, password 123. So if you get the SMS, that's what you need to log in as. I'm counting on you. We can make this work. All right, so let's go into the doorbell SMS. I'm just going to start a different version of Python, and we're going to run the server. And crikey, I almost lost my doorbell. I have a doorbell. It's a doorbell. So when I press this button now, it's saying wait for doorbell. It should. And let me also, multitasking over here. Let's get the camera going again so that everybody at home can see what's going on with the door. Oh, that's tiny. Steve's probably thinking, come on, Ben, sort your life out. Can we make you bigger? Something like that. All right, I'm going to click the doorbell, and it says ding dong. All right, so there's the device code, the device config that we received. And that's the information URI you need to go to. One of you just got an SMS, either in this room or at home. I'm going to stop my door from breaking again just by holding it inside because otherwise that lock is going to snap. And hopefully, somebody with at least we've got 15 minutes, so I'm happy to wait. Hopefully, the system has also sent me a backup in case this doesn't work and nobody gets an SMS. But hopefully, somebody has got an SMS by this point, and when they take them to a login page, the first thing it's going to do is ask them to log in. And so that was owner@example.com, and the password was 123. And then once that is confirmed, they'll get a box saying, hey, is this the user code that you received, which will be whatever just scrolled off the screen there. And then they hit confirm, and the door will magically unlock, just like this. All right, so this is the point where, I walked away, just everybody at home missed that. But those of us here saw it. So if I double click this now, it'll lock again. If I press the doorbell again, there we go, ding dong. Same person just got the SMS. Let's see whether we can do this faster. You're logged in already. So when that SMS comes in, you should just be able to click on the button. Click on the, actually, if somebody else has sent an SMS, you send another. So somebody has just taken control of the door, owner@example.com, 123. And hopefully, there you go, I'll get the audience in here as well. Now we can see everybody having fun. Logging in. Any second now. No pressure, Michelle.
Open sesame.
Open sesame.
My device.
Yay!
Oh.
And the door unlocks. All right, door's open. I'm going to keep that closed because otherwise the door's going to fall over. For those watching from home, here's the full extent of the door, and it's probably the ricketiest thing I've ever built. But it fits in my suitcase. So that's good. All right, so that pretty much let's just put that there, and let's bring this back up. That pretty much sums up everything that I wanted to talk to you about. Hopefully, like the flows and how this worked, how we kept things more secure by using device flow and auth code flow with Pixie made sense. I'm happy to, I know I've gone over time, and I didn't discuss how much time I had with Steve, to be fair, so I don't feel like I have gone over time. But I'm sure that he probably wants to keep the meetup moving, so I would love to take this offline later, unless, Steve, you want to interject and tell us that we are taking questions. But I hope this is giving you a kind of an out-the-box thinking of different ways we can do authentication with IoT, because traditionally we just have username, password authentication, and security for most developers, and this is an attack on developers. We're time poor when it comes to, we got to get this feature out. So often features security is overlooked over features and bug kind of things. So if we think outside the box, use an off-the-shelf identity provider. It doesn't have to be Auth0. To be honest, I don't care which identity provider you use. Our biggest competitor is roll your own. And if you've ever heard the don't roll your own crypto, don't roll your own authentication. There's just so much to it that it's easy to get wrong. There are products that will do the same thing. Just make sure you're using something that's supported by the community or supported by an organization who has a bigger impetus to make sure it doesn't go wrong than you do. Your biggest challenge is making your application do what it's supposed to do, not make sure the login works. I can hear Steve making noises. I think he's choking on my bad jokes.
I think I've got a few to level those up, but yeah, thank you. That was amazing. Big round of applause.
Thank you.
And just to point out, yeah, I've seen you carry this bag literally all the way around the world. Like, just the door, sorry, not the bag. The door, I've seen you carry this door all around the world. So always looks great. And I'm glad it's held together.
Just.
Yeah, we don't have any questions in the chat, but I know you've got this as a blog post, haven't you, or a GitHub?
Oh, my mic is on. I don't have a blog post about this one in particular. There's a couple of videos on my YouTube channel, which are more me just hacking around with it. Phil, who you can see his lovely face floating up there, he and I did a little bit of collaboration on this. So he helped with the Twilio integration, and we did a couple of little videos. But like I say, my DMs are open. ben@deckrai.com is my email address. Reach out to me if you've got any questions. More than happy to talk about this or anything else to do with privacy, security, authorization, blah, blah, blah. Especially blah, blah, blah. I'm going to talk about that.
All right. You can stop your screen share.
All righty.
I'm going to change my mic. Hello. All right. Developer Steve, I think you're the next speaker for today. So if anyone here in the room, we can stand up, shake about. If you haven't got a drink, you can go downstairs and grab one. Really quickly though, because Developer Steve is on next, and I'll just hand it over to you. Oh, I'm talking down here. I'll just hand it over back to you, Developer Steve, to kick off our last session for today.
Wait, am I on tonight? No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Let me just. That's my favorite joke. Like, yeah, this actually happened recently. Is yeah, one of the amazing event people at Sneak was like, "You're good to present like in the next 20 minutes, right?" And I'm like, "Oh, is that today?" And they were like, "Oh," I was like, "No, it's fine. I've got stuff ready to go." Anyway, again, just sort of going along our whole security theme. Yeah, I'm gonna break some apps, which is always cool because like as a speaker, as an advocate, like you always build these things to like work, and building something to not work is also fun too. So anyway, we're going to do that tonight. Not once, but I've actually got 2 demos. So what can go wrong? What can go wrong indeed? And of course, I've tested them beforehand. So anyway, fingers crossed that this works. Anyway, I'm going to switch over to my other screen now. Hey, there we go. And I'm going to disappear from this one into this one. There we go. So yeah, thank you all very much for having me. No, I'm going to keep this relatively quick. By quick, I mean it's probably going to take 20 minutes or so, particularly with the demos and all the talk that goes with it. Before I get underway, I just want to extend that acknowledgement to country to say that I'm coming to you from the Wagga people here in Narromine, which is in country New South Wales, and I'd really like to pay a special heartfelt respect to the original peoples here, and also pay my respects and acknowledgement to Indigenous elders past, present and emerging. Now, I like to start all my talks with a bit of a joke. So full disclaimer, even my co-hosts and colleagues have not heard this one yet. This is super new, so what can go wrong? But it is security related, so please feel free to take it with you. It's an open source joke, and well, you can just share it around. Oh, I should have done the open source one. Anyway, we'll do that at the end. I do have a whole lot of these, so this is not the only one I have. There might be a few more in this presentation, because usually I throw them out wherever I go. But anyway, why did the vulnerability get tired? Oh, actually, I think, Ben, you've heard this one, so don't say anything. Anyway, because it was ransomware. I can feel the face palms. It's great. See, I have this theory, like I've been doing, spoilers for the next slide, but I've been an evangelist or an advocate now for a number of years. And the list of jokes, dev jokes I have just keeps growing. And I have this theory that the more I do on stage, the more face palms I get, it counts as applause. So that's my working theory. Anyway, like I said, hello, I'm Developer Steve. That is actually part of my legal name, but we'll get to that story in a moment. I'm the senior developer advocate here at Sneak. Yeah, I get to build really cool demos that are technically broken, or at least have vulnerabilities, literally to go out and geek out with devs and just share vulnerabilities and things. You might be wondering, how is that? So that GIF you can see in that bottom left-hand image block corner thing near the middle, that is actually a GIF of me in VR. So sometimes I work out of it just because, well, you get sick of being on green screens and such. But anyway, Developer Steve is part of my legal name. So I got married a few years ago, and so Kuchen is actually my married name. So Cooper plus Oucher became Kuchen. Actually, Ben Decker, was there. And yeah, while I was getting my name legally changed, I thought, you know what? I've been sort of an advocate or an evangelist around the region for so many years now. I'm just going to make Developer Steve my middle name. So it is actually my middle name. Wait, Developer is my middle name. There we go. No, it is one word. Anyway, hello. So I've been coding for a number of years now. I've actually been coding since the age of 8. And just going back to Ben's amazing talk at the start, where he was talking about his first computer, mine was actually an Atari 800 XL. Yeah, if you Google it, you can work out the year. But yeah, I've been coding since about the age of 8, and I actually taught myself QBasic back in the day. Oh, why are those little dots there? Yeah, didn't actually realize. Go back. But yeah, I've been coding since the days of QBasic. So if anyone can remember that, like really, and that's not QBasic there, that's JavaScript. But anyway, QBasic days, you didn't have any libraries, you didn't have any dependencies, you pretty much built them all yourself. Actually, I think there might have been a few libraries around, but it's pre-internet days, so you probably had to get them on cassette or 5.5-inch disc. But anyway, QBasic was great. It was just as its name suggests, it was pretty basic. But of course, the coding world's come a long way since, and now it's quite easy to pull in libraries and all its associated dependencies to build out some pretty rich code. In a holistic stack, or the SDLC, the software development lifecycle, that's literally just the tip of the iceberg. And that public-facing code is literally the public-facing code. That's the attack vector. That's the part that people can get in on. Now, and I know, like as a dev, I've been guilty of this too. Put up your hand or virtually raise your hand if you've ever copy-pasted code from Stack Overflow without actually knowing what it's doing. And I've totally been guilty of that before. But like, what's that letting in? And this is something that I've always been questioning, is what is that actually letting into not only my app or my user experience, but like my backend infrastructure as well? Because I don't know what it's opening, I don't know what it's installing, or I may not necessarily know what it is, but like in a full stack scenario, or the full iceberg, that's opening doors that you may not actually be aware what doors it's opening. I just realized that's an inadvertent pun. I'm going to say it's a proper one to that last talk. Opening doors. No, you don't have to send SMS for that. But yeah, up to 90% of open source makes up today's code. And as a dev, like, you don't often think about what it's pulling in. You'll literally just do npm install, or composer install, or whatever it's going to be, and just hope that the stuff that sits behind it isn't going to open up things you don't want to let in, like nasty things. And that's the thing we're starting to notice more of, and something I've always, even as a CTO, something I was always mindful of. It's like, I'm building this amazing stack. Like, how's this 2 lines of code gonna open up to vulnerabilities that I may not be aware of what's in there? And you really don't know what it's letting in or what it's letting under into your stack when you're thinking about like the holistic life cycle. These are really handy things to have, though, like the libraries and dependencies, not the vulnerabilities. I don't go to that. But yeah, the open source world in particular, like having all this really handy library code speeds up your time to production. It speeds up the features you can have as part of your application, as part of your user experience. It basically boosts our productivity. And it's no secret, like, we already know, like, the number of open source packages in the ecosystem are exponentially growing each year. If you think some of the bigger libraries now, like, a lot of them will start to split off. You'll see like some of the features split up into a support library or a dependency library. And that in turn is used in several other projects, et cetera, et cetera. We see this exponential growth year on year. And we see the vulnerabilities that come with it as well. So you can see here the graph, and this is from some of the Snyk research and from the vulnerability database. Actually, we're going to have a look at some of these. Over the years, as these libraries grow out, like, it opens up the door for new vulnerabilities to be let in. There's something you've got to be really, really mindful of. In particular, doing the due diligence on what each dependency, what each library is doing, is super critical. You need to know what you're using and how that affects not only the stack, but also the code, how it affects the iceberg. There was actually a really good talk at Black Hat Asia last week on open source supply chain security. And that's the thing, particularly with all these dependencies, and even this gets a bit meta, even the dependencies, or the dependencies totally gets meta. Hopefully everyone's holding Doge right now. Anyway, I won't go into cryptocurrency now. But yeah, if you think about the holistic open source supply chain security, you need to make sure you know what you're what is being let in. And I have an example of this in play, and like this, there's so many of these, so many war room stories kicking around the internet of this one vulnerability that got in. But one in particular, so 2018 in the NPM ecosystem, it was a social engineering hack that used a package called EventStream. So this was let in as a dependency to a bunch of other mainstream libraries, which then let in all sorts of other nasty things. But EventStream was downloaded millions of times a week when this was at its height. Like, it was infecting systems all over the internet, or all over the internet and off the internet, just letting in all sorts of different nasty things. But they didn't stop there. So obviously it takes a lot of time to clean this stuff up. So, and once these things open doors into your stack, into your servers, into your apps, anything can be installed then, and anything can be hidden around it, particularly when you start to get into things like containerization. But we saw the same thing again in 2020 with Electron Native Notify, where this was actually stealing cryptocurrency. So it might have been stealing Doge, for example. I don't wholly condone Doge, but well, it's doing kind of good at the moment if you bought it. Anyway, the thing here is you need to be aware of what's being installed. In an IoT context, there was actually a really good story I saw, I think it was last year, where someone was able to hijack a whole bunch of IoT devices. Now, they weren't mining cryptocurrency with it, and of all things, they were actually using a whole bunch of Cat M1 devices all over the world to download anime. So I don't know why they would do that. Could have just used your internet to get it anyway, legally, of course. But this is where things start to get interesting, particularly with IoT stuff. And sort of going back to that edge device that I was talking about earlier, and this is something I'm playing with at the moment, is with those edge devices, you can actually deploy Kubernetes to those things. So, and that's just the small end of the scale. There are bigger ones available that a lot of the telcos have. They'll actually deploy them to mine sites and agri-tech sites, for example, where they're running full containerization on the edge, and all the devices at the actual site, the mine site or agri-tech scenario, all talking to that one edge and then out to the internet or back to the stack through the 5G connection or through satellite or whatever it is. But this is where those things are starting to become more vulnerable as well. So if you think someone can get into that containerized edge stack, they're able to then infect via firmware updates, because a lot of those devices do over-the-air updates through this network as well. So once you get into that one thing, it's just a cascading effect from there on in. So going back to the open source scenario, we actually work pretty close with a whole range of communities. Actually, there's a really lot of communities with something called Snyk Advisor. So because we've got this database that constantly scans for vulnerabilities, and we can actually publish our own CVEs or security alerts for vulnerabilities, we're able to work with, and also sometimes we're able to patch before the communities can push out the patches, the fixes, but before they're even ready to go. Incidentally, two things here. If you're looking to get involved in open source, please do, because they're always looking for contributors. These people do great work. A lot of them, they don't do this full time. So yeah, if you want to get involved, please do, because always contribute back, especially if you're using one of their libraries. Moment, for example, we worked with them to be able to, well, fix the vulnerabilities and help the cascading help then sort of flowed on to everyone that was using it. We're actually going to look at this particular vulnerability in one moment. And also, if there was something else I was going to say and I've forgotten it, so I'll circle back to it. Anyway, what's really cool with this is you can actually look up an open source library before you're looking to use it, which I wholeheartedly recommend. And we're going to be looking at some MQTT ones as well. So anyway, spoilers. And like I was saying, so it may not necessarily be with that direct library that you're using. It might be one of the dependencies that gets pulled in from that library, or one of the dependencies. We're not going to go down the meta path again. But yeah, more than 80% of vulnerabilities we find come in through dependencies or dependencies. I'm not going to go down there. So not even directly. And we're going to be looking at an example about this that I actually found last week. So it's super new. Hopefully it works. And yeah, I've already got pull requests in to, well, fix their library. So let's not skip the slides and let's go hack an application. Let's see if this will actually work. Here's one I have prepared earlier in the interest of time. So this first demo I'm using is a vulnerable demo called Goof, which is on the Snyk repository. And let me just make sure you can all see my screen okay. I'm a few windows in. Oh, you can. I can see my screen okay. Copy past and read that. Okay, I'll read the comments later. But if you do have comments or questions, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A. So for this first demo, I've already got it running. Interest of time. It is called Goof. This is also one of the times where, yeah, this GitHub repo does have 58 vulnerabilities, but we know about them all because it's for training and demonstration purposes only. Don't run this on infrastructure you actually like. There's a whole bunch of other really fun ones in here, but this is just one of them. So this first one is using Mongo and Node. As you can see here, in particular, we're looking at Marked, which is we're using a particular version. We're using 0.3.5. This is a cross-site scripting attack. So, and I've done these before, but I've got a story about that. We'll get to that one. It basically just does markdown lists. So I can just do a test, and that actually works, so that's good. We'll do some markdown. It made it bold. That's pretty easy. So the other thing you can do with this as well, and I just lost my mouse because live demos, nothing ever goes wrong, is put links, markdown links in. So here's one I prepared earlier. So you can see there that will actually do, we'll do a markdown link. Now the other thing, and like I've done this before to prove that an app wasn't secure and it wasn't sanitizing its inputs. And as developers, you should always sanitize your inputs. I can't stress that one enough. So the marked library, or this particular version, or even the current particular version, the current version's fixed. This is fixed. So actually has a sanitize flag as part of its call. So you can see that sanitize equals true. So this version is doing a little bit of sanitization using some pretty basic projects. So if I wanted to, for example, try and inject some JavaScript, so it's just JavaScript alert there, pretty simple. If I try and put that one in, for example, you can see that it's not going to work. Yeah, definitely not going to work. It's just going to let me update it. It would have come up with an alert thing. But that one won't work because it's sanitizing the inputs. Again, highly recommend sanitizing inputs. And so we can level that up a little bit more because in JavaScript, we can use this. No, there's no pun there. Anyway, we can add a little list, this thing in, plus we can also URL encode some of the input. And this is one of the ways to try and get around a sanitized input for an XSS attack, is by trying to trick the regex into thinking that, yeah, there's nothing to see here, move along, which this one will actually work. This box is alerting. Indeed it is, because it means my attack worked. So I've done something similar to this with a popular web magazine, let's say. Remember when those this was a few years ago now, but remember when those 25 words or less apps were a big thing on Facebook? It was like embedded in an iframe. I do, because I built hundreds of them, the digital agency I was at the time. But one of the things that this particular group were running was something similar to this, except it was tell us, the app you've built or whatever it was. And when the user did their input, it automatically came out in like a scrolling feed inside the app itself. And I mean, I was doing some testing. I told them about it, and yeah, did something very similar with an alert box. And I was like, hey, you're not sanitizing your inputs. You need to fix that because someone's going to do something bad. And 3 hours, 4 hours went by. They were like, yeah, we'll look at it. 3 hours, 4 hours, nothing happened. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. I need to push this point home more. So I did something similar here, but using a JavaScript redirect to my website, which lasted for about 2 hours. I messaged them and told them. So anyway, that was, but yeah, always, if you do find something like that, please tell the app owners, because they need to fix it. And we need to protect users because, I mean, ultimately, both of them. Anyway, that was my first demo and it actually did work. So woohoo. The other one I was going to show just quickly, this is one, I've got a blog post coming out soon on this one, is a PHP framework called Kobe, which I've used before. I love Kobe. It's a nice lightweight framework. You can build some really great campaign sites with it. You can build some nice little PHP-based dashboards and trigger sites for doors or all sorts of things. So this is just using Composer. And if I go to the Kirby GitHub, you'll see here the current version is 3.5.4, which is in production. If I check on the vulnerability database, you can see here anything below 3.4, 5.4. You might want to check that. You might want to look at the stuff behind it, but 3.5.4 is fine. I've already got that installed just in the interest of time. So if I do a ls, which is list, I've already done Composer install, which is sitting there. So now I'm going to use Snyk just to do a quick scan on the directory. Of course, I already know the outcome of this, but you might have figured that. But this is what I was talking about with the dependencies. So Kirby itself is fine, but the dependency that installed on PHP Mailer is not fine. That's actually using a version of it that is actually really not good. Having used PHP Mailer before, I generally don't use it anyway, but the fact, like as a dev, I wouldn't have even known if I hadn't have looked into that. And you can see there, like the version that it's using is really not good. But in the latest version, that is fixed. By default, it's installing a not good version that may not necessarily do good things to your infrastructure. Anyway, that was just a quick demo to show you what I was saying around the dependency side of things. The other thing I was going to quickly demo is if you do a quick search for MQTT, there's a whole raft of things that you really need to be careful of. And MQTT, for anyone that's used it like Mosquito or anything, like securing that is super critical because like that's the backbone of your IoT infrastructure. That's where everything that talks back to your network, that's where all your messaging's going, all your reporting's coming out of that. It might be opening doors. It could be doing all sorts of, I know it's not opening doors, man, but that's where anything is going to be talking through. So you really need to protect that because particularly if you, if you roll your own broker, like please be very careful. Make sure you know how you're securing it. And even if you don't, if you're running on someone else's broker, you still need to be aware of what's coming into it or what's being let into it. Because quite often you're either staging through a database that then gets pulled out through a front-end user interface or through some type of app that a user like turns a light on and off or whatever it is, or changes the color. Like you need to be aware of what's being led into your network or what's being led into, well, the case of IoT things, what's being led into your house. You wouldn't open your door for a stranger, just saying. So make sure you know what you're installing, which is then, I've lost my mouse again. I'm going to say that's an undocumented feature of PowerPoint. All right, let me figure out where my mouse is. Where is it? Oh, okay, now I've got it now. Very good. Anyway, yay, the demo's worked. But oh, I just realized there's another pun here, Ben. Look, foot in the door. Anyway, everyone send their JSON tokens in. Yeah, please be aware of what you're letting into stacks. Please be aware of what you're building into your experiences because you sometimes may not necessarily know, but it's not even just the initial deployment of the app. Like you need to be rescanning that stuff because new vulnerabilities, new versions of the software are being discovered all the time. So it's that ongoing scanning that you really need to be aware of. And in particular, as we all work more and more cloud native, because that is literally, I've got another talk in the works called Needle in the Haystack. As you can imagine, containerization in particular, they're everywhere now and they exponentially grow just in one stack in like seconds, particularly in the, you think all the really big OpenShift stacks where things just scale up in like literally seconds. Like you want to make sure that you're protecting all that. Yeah, I'm not going to go into this, but yeah, anyway, vulnerabilities in containers, whole other talk. I'm not going to go into that now. Takeaways, please scan your code. No, really, please scan your code. Scan your containers too. Scan everything. Just to be aware what you're not only letting in now, but what potentially can get let in the future. We got a really cool report that came out literally last week on this, cloud native application security that does go into code stuff as well. You might be asking, but Dev Steve, where's the IoT? Why is there no IoT? So good question. that is coming. We do have a thing I've been tinkering with, but gonna have to. It's not quite ready. But literally, it does like a C fingerprint to be able to determine the firmware running on boards. But stay tuned. I need to tinker with it some more. It's not quite ready for prime time, but it is coming because this is something I've been raising internally too. Is edge devices are a whole other world. And if you think about what I've just showed you there, like you can get in even easier through an edge deployment. And then if it's running some type of containerized thing, straight on through. So anyway, and these things are sitting in fields, literally in fields. We have a security conference coming up in region. The CFP is closed. I might be able to get some talks in because I'm one of the reviewers. But DevSecCon is coming June 23rd, 24th. It is region friendly, which I always love because I don't like getting up at 2 a.m. I mean, not unless I have to, but I mean, it's region friendly, I promise. And these are the stickers left over from Black Hat Asia last week. That link still works. At least I did when I last checked it. So if not, let me know. But if you want to grab some of these amazing stickers, they're just cool. No reason. It's got Star Wars on it. And just in closing, please use the superpowers for good. I know you all do, but I always like to say that. And always be excellent to each other. And slide. Now I got to switch back a whole bunch of screens. There we go. Oh, did the venue leave? Oh, I can feel Michelle rushing over to the computer as we speak. Any second now.
Can you hear me? I feel like the 2020. Can you hear me? Is the
Hugh. No, I can't hear you. Yes, I can.
No, you can. Okay, good. All right, that's it. We can probably because they can hear us, which is fine.
Oh yeah, I got to switch slides back.
Do we have any questions in the room for Developer Steve on the developer vulnerabilities? I think we like the message wrap up at the end that be excellent to each other and always check your vulnerabilities.
Yes.
We have some battery problems here, so I'm
oh no
microphone today. But I think in summary, the Internet of Things is potentially the most important thing that you need to secure when you're using code, because any link in any of the chains, like you were explaining before, that it's not just the device that you use, it's the vulnerabilities in the things that serve the device that you use. So in the future, when we're all going to Bali and buying knockoff Garmin watches instead of knockoff like other watches, we need to be careful of what is inside that watch and what supplies that watch as well. Just another example of the chain. Yeah, so there's no questions from the room. I don't think there's any questions on
I
there.
Didn't see any.
Thank you to Ben for your door. Thank you, Gail, for showing us about A3C. And thanks, Developer Steve.
Looked like a few face palms, but that's normal. Thank you.
Oh, no.
And thank you to amazing speakers. Oh. Can you hear me now? We may be having some technical difficulties. Can you spot the bugs or undocumented features? I know I can. No, I can't hear you now because you're on mute. I mean, I'm just glad that most of this worked tonight. No, you need to come off mute, Michelle. Oh, well, if I say that, she might be able to hear me. Maybe
I can hear you.
Oh,
no,
you can.
You can hear me, but I can't hear you. But that's okay. Well, why don't we can just leave it
there. Okay. We can just wrap up separately. Well, of course, you can't hear me say that.
I think we'll let you wrap up because our sound's not working.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to say a quick thank you to all our speakers. I mean, we almost pulled off tonight without a hitch, and there was a few hitches before the time. Anyway, thank you all to our amazing speakers. That is kind of me, so it's a little bit weird. But yeah, thank you to Ben Deckerai when he gets to watch this recording. Big thank you to the Cathedral Hotel. If you're in Adelaide, please drop by and check them out because they came through very last minute for us. Next one will be in Brisbane. Amazing. Oh, I do remember Michelle talking about that. Anyway, yes, the next one will be in Brisbane, so stay tuned for that one. We already have some new speakers lined up. However, if you are looking to, if you've got something you want to share, please reach out. We're always looking for new speakers. If you're a first-time speaker, especially, please reach out. I'm more than happy to help you. This is the share the project part. So if you do have a share the project, please raise your hand or put a message in the chat thing. If not, it gets kind of awkward because now I got to keep talking, thinking I might tell a joke, but I don't know. Anyway, if you have a project to share, please reach out. We would love to turn it into a talk. That's about it. Now we're going to go to networking. So thank you all for coming. Please stick around, jump around the virtual spaceship. There might be some dough kicking around the virtual spaceship. No, there's not yet. It's too soon. Elon hasn't put it in space yet. But anyway, thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you next time.